Hey guys, Young Drummer here. Wanted to do a quick video on this 8x14 Slingerland Marcher from the 30s that I bought as a Frankenstein drum and I customized it into a modern snare drum. So what was going on with it, I got it at a flea market for like 50 or 60 bucks, something like that, 50 bucks. It came with wooden hoops, calfskin, which was the bottom was broken, the top was fine, and I used that calfskin for another video that I did on a Dynasonic. And it came with outside single tension rods and claws. So just basically single tension, you tighten one side and that's the tension on both sides. Those rods were not attached to the shell. And it was basically a Cloud Badge Slingerland drum from the 30s. And as you can see, this cool artwork from the Sons of the American Legion. And on a couple sides, so I'm assuming that this was a marcher for the Sons of the American Legion. It's a really good, cool chunk of history. I love the artwork, almost reminds me of something you'd seen from the Masons or something like that. Just really cool, almost like 1940s Art Deco kind of artwork. And basically we'll get into the plies and all that kind of stuff. So what I did, I bought it, I took off the Cloud Badge, I put a vent little thing that I had there. You can see where that's where the Cloud Badge was. And basically I took off all the hardware and I said, what am I going to do with this thing? I had another Frankenstein drum that had these club date bow tie lugs from Ludwig. I also had the strainer, a P85, which is I want to replace, but that's what I had going on. This thing sticks. A lot of people love the P85. A lot of people hate the P85. And I'm starting to turn into somebody who doesn't like the Ludwig P85. And I had this old Ludwig snare butt from the 70s or wherever that's from. So basically I took parts off this weird Keller shell drum that I had that had the Ludwig stuff that I just referenced. And basically I drilled this thing, and I'll show pics of the drilling that I did. I drilled it for, measured the distance of the spacing of the holes, and just, I've done that before, took a risk and just drilled, slapped the bow tie lugs on there. Got some tension rods that were long enough. I had to order those online, and I had the hoops, and basically I turned this into a modern snare drum. But when I tuned it all up, it sounded like shite because this is an interesting thing about marchers and calfskin and gut, is this drum is from the 30s, and the snare beds where these, the snare beds where the wires sit in on the reso side of a snare drum, you'll notice these snare beds. For those of you that don't know, it's a little bit of a dip. Modern ones are really, really shallow, but the old ones were really, really deep. And that was my problem. So this thing was made originally for gut strings, and with a calfskin head on the bottom, the calf would be much more pliable and sink into that crevice. And I'll put up a whole bunch of pics in explaining what this stuff was. But basically, when you throw modern wires on it, it's buzz city. It doesn't work. For anyone who's kind of done this with an old vintage drum, if you're having buzz issues, you might want to look into the snare beds. So, sounded like crap. So basically I threw it in a box and I shipped it to my pals at Precision Drum in upstate New York, which I send a lot of my bearing edge stuff to, and I'll basically throw a pic of the guys kind of working up there and who they are. I love them. It's really easy. I just, ship my stuff out to them. They cut my bearing edges. They do anything custom on the drums that I need to do, and they send it back to me. Easy breezy. And I really like those guys. They do amazing work. So I basically had the bearing edges done, redone, because why not? They're already kind of working on the snare beds. So what that would mean to work on these snare beds were deep is basically redoing the bearing edge. He made that snare bed less narrow and then modernized the bearing edges on this thing and the snare buds, and no more buzz. So, for no further ado, that's my snare drum. Took a risk and I really love it. It's mahogany. I'll get into the plies in just a second. And that's going to give kind of a warm, fat tone, rich mahogany. And what else to say about it is just basically it all came out really, really nice, and I hope you guys like it. We'll do a sound test. I'm going to do it in a low tuning, a medium tuning, and a high tuning. And then we'll go from there, and I'll get into the bearing edges. Thanks. guys, lastly, I want to get into the plies on this drum. Let me focus in on there. And then basically what you have there, this is a 3-ply drum of mahogany. That middle white part is poplar to my eye, and that next brown one is mahogany. This is a maple reinforcement ring. Just notice how I tell from maple from poplar is, poplar tends to sometimes have almost like a greenish quality to it or a grayish quality to it. It's almost like an uncured wood look. And the maple is just basically kind of that rich blonde kind of thing going on there, okay? They did, Precision Drum did an amazing job on the bearing edges. They weren't too bad, but since they had the drum doing my snare beds, I thought, like, basically, why not? And they needed to do the bearing edge on the bottom anyway, so why not do the top? And why this problem with the snare bed? So you could see the dip. That is basically a modern snare bed where it's not very deep. And what Precision had to do is they had to take off, maybe I'm assuming a couple millimeters of this edge, cut it down, redo the edge, and that basically worked a little bit on the snare beds themselves so they weren't that deep, which cured my buzz problem. So you guys hopefully enjoyed the video. Just incidentally, this would have been a very much an entry-level junior drum with an amazing shell, and it already had some holes in it, so that's why I just kind of did the project itself and took off the Cloud Badge. Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Have a good day.